Hey kids, it's been a little bit since I put together a video, but I thought I'd do some quick commentary on the 1972 footage of NASA's Lunar Rover. But before we dive into that, I want to give an illustration of this guy's skilled and possibly foolish maneuvering through a body of mud and water. I want to correlate what we see from this gentleman driving his Jeep to what we see in the 1972 NASA footage of the Lunar Rover.
Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. The focus is getting live. You're going through a tight one. You keep on listening that much.
Pretty epic footage, huh? But can we watch it one more time? I left off a few seconds from the end that I think will be pretty helpful in this illustration.
Can't be trusted. Can't be trusted. Can't be trusted. I don't trust no one. Run of my middle, there's a loaded gun. Can't trust it. They're the CIA. Can't trust it. They want to put me away. Can't trust it. They're the FBI. Can't trust it. Just send another spy. Can't trust it. Oh, the TSA. Can't trust it. Get your hands on me.
I think it's safe to assume that unless you had already seen this clip, you probably thought that the toy Jeep was an actual full-size Jeep being driven by a real driver. Until you saw the end of the video, of course. And part of the reason for that may be because of how the clip was presented to you. Now take a quick listen to this example because I think it illustrates perfectly what I mean.
Despite what you might be thinking, these two circles are not equal. I repeat, these two circles are not equal. One is in fact larger than the other. What I need you to do is determine which one that is. So, please raise your hand if you believe the blue circle is larger than the red. All right. Please raise your hand if you believe the red circle is larger than the blue. All right, very good. Now, before I said anything about these two circles, what was your first instinct? Equal, right? Because they look equal. And the reason why they look equal is because, in fact, they are equal. These two circles are identical. Yet I got just about every one of you to raise your hand and say that they're not. So what do we learn? That you can be manipulated like that to believe in something that goes against your natural instincts. Just imagine as a child you're taught that the blue circle is larger than the red. If you say it enough times, you convince yourself that's the truth. If you're told the lie enough times, it becomes part of your reality. And if enough people are taught that lie, that the blue circle is larger than the red, well, now it becomes part of the culture. And if that culture then passes that misinformation along to the next generation, well, now it becomes tradition.
Now we are going to take a look at the Apollo 16 Lunar Rover video. But I want you to keep the example of the toy Jeep and the commentary regarding the red and blue circles in mind as you watch it.
Let me up to anything.
Deck's on, Mark. That max acceleration?
No.
Man, you are really bouncing.
Is he on the ground at all?
That's
10 kilometers.
Huh? He's got about 2 wheels on the ground. He's a big rooster tail out of all 4 wheels. And as he turns, he skids. The back end breaks loose just like on snow. Come on back, John. And the deck is running. Man, I'll tell you, Indy's never seen a driver like this. Okay, when he hits the craters and starts bouncing is when he gets his rooster tail. He makes sharp turns. Hey, that was a good stop. Those wheels just locked. Mark off.
Okay. Do you want to do it one more time?
Yeah.
Got about a minute, 5 seconds that
Okay,
time.
mark on. Okay, you could have gone the other way. Go ahead. There's the big craters there, though, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't want to run into those holes.
They want 4 minutes worth, John.
Many of you who just watched that could see how obviously fake that was. The two primary examples for me are the Hollywood-style backdrop being used and the complete absence of movement from the alleged astronaut. You can very easily see the distinguishing line between the backdrop here and the foreground. You'll notice that the alleged driver will never enter this area back here. Instead, as he's driving, he just cuts along this line right here on the foreground of the video, because this is just a backdrop, just like a movie.
Today we are looking at classic film production techniques. In professional filmmaking, backdrops are often used to create the illusion of a much larger landscape than what exists in reality. When done properly, it can be a very effective method for fooling the mind of a viewer into believing that he is seeing something which he simply is not. As you can see for yourself in this example, a large backdrop is employed to create the illusion that the street extends well beyond the point at which it actually ends. So long as the cameras are positioned and directed in such a way as to keep the apparent background and foreground within frame, the two can appear to blend together, so much so that an unwitting viewer may not notice. Even though this is a well-known trick in film production, the use of backdrops can still fool the viewer if he otherwise believes that what he is seeing is real. The viewer might overlook the use of backdrops if he is engaged in a suspension of disbelief, say, if he is inside of a cinema for entertainment purposes and is knowingly switching off his critical faculties. Or he may overlook the technique if he is viewing footage which he has already accepted as being reality. Now that you know what you were looking for, let's take a look at two professionally produced films to see if you can spot the use of a backdrop. The first footage is from the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz, starring the gorgeous Judy Garland.
Won't you take me with you?
Why, of course I will.
Hooray! We're off to see a wizard.
Oh, well, you're not starting out very well.
Oh, I'll try. Really, I will.
To Oz?
To Oz.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is the Wizard of Wiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Did you spot the delineation between the foreground and the backdrop here? Skip back and take another look if you missed it the first time. Now let's move on to something slightly more difficult. This footage is from the 1972 film Apollo 17, starring Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt. See if you can spot the delineation between the set and the backdrop.
And one big block there had very sharply defined parallel parting planes. I think there's a foliation of minerals that parallel that parting, but I'll have to check it out. Okay, copy that, Zach. Those parting planes go over the will go through the whole boulder on the order of at least 3 meters long and outcrop.
Did you spot the delineation between the foreground and the backdrop? Skip back and take another look if you missed it the first time. As we know from the 1977 cult hit Capricorn 1, staging lunar scenes is relatively easy on even a small budget. The producers of Apollo 17 also utilized clever camera techniques to make the ruse harder to spot by employing poor video quality and low lighting. These and other tricks allowed the filmmakers to fool most viewers of this made-for-TV film into completely missing the obvious backdrop before their very eyes. Stanley Kubrick himself would be proud of their efforts. When comparing the two films side by side, we can see that in both productions, any viewer who knows what to look for will spot several discrepancies which give the ruse away. The most obvious is the difference in coloration between the backdrop and the foreground. In The Wizard of Oz, this makes the change from foreground to backdrop very obvious. In Apollo 17, the scene is shot in such a manner as to make it appear as though the backdrop is so far away that it must begin behind the foreground, as though the actor is standing on somewhat of a hill. Still, the difference is too obvious for the critical viewer to miss. The second major clue is the inability of the actors to walk beyond the foreground. In The Wizard of Oz, this is accommodated by the editors cutting away to the next scene as the characters approach the backdrop. Whereas in Apollo 17, the actor simply ceases his walk once he approaches the edge of the set. In both instances, the tricks may at first deceive, but only until the viewer engages their own critical faculties.
But even more obvious than the backdrop and the foreground is the absolute complete lack of motion in this alleged person. Look at this arm. Look at both these arms. They don't move at all. You can blatantly see that this is a little model or a toy of some kind, or maybe even a life-size replica, but it's certainly not a human. There is certainly no shortage of individuals exposing NASA fraud and fakery. Whether it's about harnesses,
Sing a song of violence and listen for the sound. All the little soldiers start to come around. Starting with a rumour, a whisper in an ear. Suspicion don't take very long before it turns to fear. They don't need a reason, they don't wanna know who or what they're fighting, just tell them where to go. Give the chance of glory, give the chance of fame. Give the boy an enemy, give the dog a name. Keep the factions fighting, start them off at school. Keep the factions fighting, so don't divide and rule. Football teams are splendid and fashion just a tool. Keep the factions fighting, so you divide and rule. I think I'll be a bum thing, a silly and a dumb thing. I think
or
I'll be the
CGI.
one thing that keeps us all apart. I'm frightened of the humans, I'm frightened of the stairs, frightened of the poisons they pump into the air, frightened of the chemicals they spray upon the land, frightened of the power they hold within their hand, frightened of bureaucracy, I'm frightened of the law, frightened of the government and who it's working for, frightened of the children who won't know how to cope with the world in rack and ruin from their technocratic go. Think of me a bum thing, a silly and a dumb thing. I think I need the one thing that keeps us in the dark. Frightened of the humans, frightened of the stairs, frightened of the poisons pumped into the air.
Or bad hairspray.
Chemicals they spray upon the land, frightened of the power they hold within their hand, frightened of bureaucracy and frightened of the law, frightened of the government and who it's working for, frightened of the children who won't know how to cope with the world in rock and ruin from their technocratic go. Think of me a bum thing, a silly and a dumb thing. I think I need the one thing that keeps us in the dark. rips us all apart.
But this is one minor contribution that I would like to add to the pile. Thanks for watching, and remember to test all things and keep that which is good.